Hello and welcome to the Scale Modelling Cafe and welcome to my review of 2022. What I aim to do in this video is just have a friendly chat about what's been going on in the last 12 months, some of the models I've made, and yeah, maybe I'll even choose my kit of the year. We'll see. Alright, so I've got my green book here with all my notes. I suppose the big highlight of 2022 is the channel, and it came into being in May, and the reason I decided to do it was just it's another kind of aspect of my hobby. That's it. I'm not here to change the world or make millions of money and end up on Strictly Come Dancing. It's purely for fun and my enjoyment, and so far I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think just a few of you do as well from the comments I've had, which are really very, very kind, and I can't thank you enough for all those. It's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? It's a journey. But if I look back, even just the beginning of the channel, those I don't know, how long has it been now? May, 7 months, something like that. The difference between the videos I'm putting out now to back then, I think I've come a long way, and I'm very pleased with how it's evolving. No doubt lots of evolution to come. As I said, the reason I decided to do this was purely just for fun. I've for a while now I've been doing magazines and things like that, and it's always a thrill to see your model in print. It really is. This, I find though, is more interactive. I get direct feedback back, and a magazine has its limitations, obviously, whereas this video format, you can actually see, sometimes in real time even, how I'm actually going about things. And yeah, it's a lot of work actually, but it is fun to do. In fact, I've been editing all day, pretty much. The Antonov, more of which later on at the end of the chat. But yeah, it's been good fun. I've done different sorts of videos in the short time I've been doing this. Obviously the main focus is the video builds, split into chapters. I find what I could do is condense everything into one sort of 30-40 minute video with some music, but that's just copying everybody else really, and I just kind of wanted to do my own sort of thing, whilst at the same time taking inspiration from other YouTube content creators that I like. I hate that term. I'm not a content creator. I'm just a bloke who enjoys doing making videos on YouTube. And a big shout out's got to go to Rick Lawler of Propaganda, who really helped me get going, recommended some editing software, helped talk me through things, how it all worked. So massive shout out to you, Rick, if you're watching. I couldn't have started without you, frankly. Yeah, like I say, it's been a lot of fun. Not only doing those videos, but also the chat videos. I really enjoy doing my weekly updates, just to let you all know what's going on the channel. It's a chance that I can bring some news to the channel and just offer my thoughts on the new kits and accessories and things that are coming out that have caught my eye. It's by no means massively comprehensive, but I just like offering my opinion on some of the new stuff that comes out. It's also a chance I can update what's going on the channel and things like that. So so they're going to continue. Sometimes though they do get a little bit stressful, because I like to put them up on a Friday at the end of the week, and I like to try and film that if I can on a Friday afternoon, just to give, if there's any sort of breaking news, I can include it. Obviously I miss lots of stuff normally, but it does mean that just a phone call from the missus or something like that, and all of a sudden I'm scrambling around to try and smash it out, and I go to bed early on a Friday because the shift pattern I'm in work on a Saturday, and I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning, which honestly just kills me. So it's all a bit frenetic on a Friday. However, it looks like at least temporarily I'm changing shifts. So that's going to de-stress that. And if it's up a little bit later, it's not going to matter because I don't have to get up so early, which is a big bonus. So those will continue. I've also enjoyed some of the other chat videos that I've done, some of the reviews, or they're not really reviews, are they? More kind of sprue tours of some of the kits. More of those will be coming to the channel. And just some of my opinion ones, which again, I enjoy, and I really enjoy the feedback. And I can't thank you enough for the feedback. It really has sparked some conversation, given me some ideas, and helps to move things along. So thank you very much for taking the time to add your comments. It's been great. That's kind of a bit of an overview of what's been going on throughout the year. What I'll do now is I'll just talk through some of the models I've made. Not as prolific as I have been, and I think a lot of that is down to the YouTube. Excuse me, because it does take an awful lot of time. I knew it's going to take an awful lot of time when I started this, but I really enjoy it, so I'm gonna carry on, even if it means that my output is lower than it otherwise would be. I think what I might do, because the last project, the Antonov, has been such a massive project. I've got, well, I was going to say hundreds of hours. It's probably not that much of footage to wade through to cut right down for videos, but I'm thinking maybe I'll just do a bit of a palette cleanser. I won't film it, I won't photograph it, I'll just make it and enjoy it just for me, and then maybe I'll do a little bit of a debrief on one of my weekly chats when I finished it. I might do that. I want something quick, relatively simple, smash it out the park before I start the next big project, which is going to be the Zoukei-Mura F4C. That's going to be very involved, and I think I do need a little bit of a breather. Just a little bit of, like I say, a little straightforward, easier kit that I can just enjoy and sort of de-stress the whole thing, just as a bit of a reset before launching in to that one. What I'll probably end up doing though is taking photos and videoing it and blah anyway, because that's just me. But anyway, we'll see what happens next year. Okay, right. Let's run through some of the models I've made this year then. So it all started off in February, which was the first completion, which was the Zvezda Mi-24 Hind in 72nd scale. The whole premise of this one was, this is for the Weathering Aircraft magazine from Ammo, and the brief was to make a model purely using acrylics. No oils, no enamel products, no lacquer paints, nothing like that. Pure water-based acrylics, and proper acrylics. And I know we could get bogged down in the definition of an acrylic and a lacquer, and it's the pigment of the carrier and blah, but the dropper bottle, water-based stuff. As with me though, I can't just build straight from the box. So the first thing was it had a riveting job. The Hind is festooned with rivets and it just looks a bit bland even in 72nd scale without them. What I did find though, this was the Revell boxing of the Zvezda kit, and I don't know what was up with the plastic, but it delaminated in some places. I did, in some areas, the worst of it, did repair it with a bit of liquid cement. That was relatively straightforward, although it did leave a mark and a scar. But actually, this was going to be a derelict model, and it did actually help with that effect in some areas, so that was a happy accident. I also threw a whole load of photo etch at it, did some scratch building in the main cabin, and for the first time ever used the Quinta instrument 3D resin instrument decals, which first time I used them, partial success. I think the result was nice, but not having used them before, they did go a little bit soggy and floppy, and there were some curved areas, and they bubbled up and that kind of stuff in some areas. So great for learning, using them for the first time, and I use them on a later project which I'll dit on about. And the painting and the weathering, which was obviously the main focus of it, was really good fun. I used the that sort of black silly putty type masking stuff, which is actually a liquid. It's just really very, very viscous. So what it does is you lay it on, you have to wait for a bit, and then as it kind of starts to settle, that's when it grips onto the surface, then you can paint. But it still keeps moving. So in a couple of areas you could see where the mask had kind of shrunk back or moved. So I actually went in and touched it up freehand. And in hindsight, I think I could have painted the whole thing freehand. When I did some of the shading effects and that touching up, thinning it down with some acrylic thinner, and it sprayed beautifully, and I was really surprised. I wasn't expecting that to happen at all. Yeah, that was a bit of an eye-opener, and I may well try another project just using those, and I'll film the whole thing. One for next year, I'm sure. The weathering also, I used some of the acrylic washes and filters that Ammo do, how to play with those. They were quite good. The one lesson from that is that using the acrylic thinner when the base coat is dry, properly dry, means that you can blend away and it's completely impervious to the base coat underneath, and it does a really good job of blending stuff. And I mixed in some of the pigments with a bit of water for some streaking effects, and that worked really, really well as well. So I was pleased how the whole thing worked. Even the splattering effects on the top, that'll work fine as well. So really pleased with how that turned out. Not sure when that's going to be published. Keep an eye on the Weathering Aircraft magazine. It'll be the acrylics issue, so look out for that. Right, also completed in February was the first project that actually went out. I think it was June. Was the Academy F14 in 72nd scale, and what a beautiful little kit that was. Almost the equivalent of the Tamiya 48 scale one, as I'm led to believe. I've not actually built that kit. That will be built next year. Some say that's the greatest kit that's ever been made. We shall test that next year. But the premise of this one was I wanted to do it as a what if. I flew the Tornado F3 with 25 Squadron, and I managed to get some 72nd 25 Squadron decals. I was going to do it on an F3, been looking for the Hasegawa one for a while. And then the thought just occurred to me, what if the F3 was even more of a disaster than it was in the beginning and ended up getting cancelled, and they bought the F14 instead. I used the extra acrylics decals, extra decals from the 815 set. So I had my name and my observer's name, Jimmy. That went on the canopy, and Evelyn, the nose up for my links. She was smacked on the nose. Painted up in the British colours, and I had some great fun. Used again the Quintaset, learnt some lessons from before. Used that to great success actually. I was really pleased how that turned out, and what I did on that one was cut away where they printed the colour for the consoles and things where I could, because trying to match the colour, it's not impossible, it's just tedious and difficult, and why they just don't print it on clear or just leave it off, I really don't know. It would be really nice if they could do that. One of the comments was that was an absolutely horrendous suggestion, which I thought was a bit over the top. I think it's quite a good one myself, but there you go. Some people, put your head above the parapet and you're going to attract some nutters occasionally. Anyway, that had a full Eduard photo etch job as well, and I detailed up the undercarriage, which took a long time, but really kind of lifted the detail in that areas. It also had some brass in weapons. So if you've not seen that, just go and pop along and have a look at the playlist for that. Right, next up, the second project on the channel was the little Eduard. It's not Edard. We all call it Edward. Eduard. in the UK, so I'm going to carry on with that. The little Z37, which I wanted to do as a derelict, so just like the Hind, and I love doing derelict subjects. It means I can really go to town, and I thoroughly enjoyed the process. That was the first time I'd used the new style Eduard masks, the decals, and I thought they were absolutely superb. Frankly, not to the point where I was like, I don't really know what all the fuss is about. Maybe a little bit desaturated in the colours on the printing, but it kind of worked in my favour if I'm doing a derelict aeroplane. I also, that was my first time I'd used some 3D printed resin parts. I used it on the whole spray boom blah underneath. I caused a little bit of damage when removing it from the scaffolding, entirely my fault, but actually I found it, there's quite a lot of flex to it, which means it's fairly resilient actually to handling and being knocked about. So that was cool. And yeah, the other thing I used on that was the space set. So yes, it was the Profi Pack version, but in the space set you get some seat harnesses and again the sort of Quintus style 3D printed decal for instrument panels and stuff like that. So yeah, that worked really well. More of that in a second. In fact, more of that right now, because the next couple of projects were Eduard 48 109Fs, an F2 and an F4, both in winter whitewash, again for the Weathering Aircraft magazine. Unfortunately, this is where I had a bit of a technological meltdown and I lost all the video footage and the vast majority of the photos for the first project, which was a nightmare. Thank goodness I didn't do both at the same time, but then I had to quickly smash out the second one for Javier for the magazine. Hence there was no video for it, but it was essentially painted up exactly the same. All the markings on that pretty much were sprayed, just a few decals for badges and things. And again, thoroughly enjoyed the project. What I did with these, not only was the focus the winter whitewash and the weathering for that, and that's going to be in the ME 109 issue of the Weathering magazine, coming soon, I hope, is what I wanted to do was compare a Profi Pack with Overtrees and then some extras. And I think the test came down in the favour, for me anyway, for the Overtrees, because I used again the space set, so you get the instrument panel and some of the placards in the cockpit in that 3D printed decal stuff, which is awesome, but you also get some of the more important stuff in photo etch, such as seat belts, and you get the rudder pedals, but you know, you could probably get away with them actually from the kit, the plastic ones, if you're not too much of a fan of photo etch, and some of the other details around the place. And I think it's great value. You can get a set of Overtrees for about £7. It's about £7 or £8 for the space set. So you're almost pretty much up. I mean, that's the price of a weekend kit there and then. And then all you need really is, most people have got a stash of decals somewhere, or do your masks like what I did, and canopy masks. I think that's great value for money. What I tend to do now is, when Eduard release a new moulded kit, is I'll go and I'll get the Overtrees and I'll whack it in the stash, because that way I haven't got 30 quid tied up in the stash. I've got 8 to 10 quid tied up in the stash, and then when I want to build the model, I'll just get the few accessories I need, and then I'm off and running. And I think that was a great experiment. So yeah, the 109Fs, they were good, and I like the Hungarian one actually. I like the colour tail. I think I might do more Hungarian stuff going forward. So that was those. Right, moving on into July, more Eduard goodness. I was on a bit of an Eduard roll, obviously, and another sort of double build, and this was the new S199 in 1/72 scale, the Mule. I really like that aeroplane. I'm a big fan of the early Israeli Air Force, and I've wanted to make a model of the 199 for a long time. 72nd is my preferred scale, so I grabbed the dual boxing straight away and built them straight away. The Israeli one, I sprayed the masks, used the masks to spray the markings, thanks to friend of the channel, Nige. And the other one, I used the Eduard decals again, on the green one, on the jet one. And yeah, I think they behaved brilliantly. Maybe a little bit, again, desaturated on the colours, but better than the Z37, so they were going in the right direction. And what an amazing little kit they are. So really looking forward to next year and the 48th version. But the one thing that struck me with that was the innovation, how they did the gear mounting legs. Obviously, for a 109, because essentially it's a re-engine 109, is getting the angle of those undercarriage legs correct, because they not only did they display, they have forward rake as well. And what Eduard have done is they've moulded the sort of female part, if you like, where the gear legs go, at the front of the cockpit floor. And then when you kind of have to bend the wings sort of like this and then click them into place. Perfect seam line. And on the top of the gear legs are moulded very, very sturdy sort of rectangular cuboid mountings, which perfectly set the angle for the gear legs, and it works an absolute treat. So that really bodes well for next year for the 72nd 109s, the 48th S199 and the 48th K4, of which all those, I'm most excited about the K4, but I'm going to get all of them regardless. So that was the S109s, beautiful little things. Right, August. Then we went into lightning mode. I built an F3 for ammo for their new A-stand range of paints, which I've just done the review for last week at time of filming. Essentially re-bottled Alclad with a few tweaks to the formula and the range. They wanted a British modeller to do a classic British subject, which was the Lightning. And so I made that, and I was going to do a 56 Squadron aeroplane with the red tail, because I flew with 56 Squadron when I did my training for the Tornado F3. That was the OCU number plate. So I wanted to do that, and then my mate Fricky, who's out here, dropped into conversation that his dad flew the F Mark III on 74 Squadron. So I got him to get his dad to trawl through his logbook, and I managed to, through Nige, get some masks made up, and I made him his dad's aeroplane and actually gave it to him, and it sat in his dad's cabinet, which was really nice. That had some aftermarket as well. So what came with the kit, I bought it secondhand, it's long out of production. Had a resin cockpit, true details. That was a little bit rough in parts and was not easy to fit, but we got it in. I bought some Air Res exhausts. It had some photo etch, which went into the cockpit and the undercarriage. Aero Club, which had a very nice weighted nose weight, which went inside the shot cone and above the undercarriage, nose wheel bay. And also the nose ring, which was not usable. It was very roughly cast, it had holes in it and blah, so I ended up using the kit one. Master Barrels pitot, which is a bit of a must for me, and an LP Models ladder, which is 3D printed, but comes, you know, exactly as you see it. So no cleanup required. You just literally prime it, paint it, stick it on. Hoofing. Everyone raves about the Airfix Lightning. I think back in the day, I can see why there was so much hype about it. It was very reminiscent, I think, of mid-90s Hasegawa. It was definitely the equal of Hasegawa when it first came out. I think it was about 96 it came out, around that time. It's about the time I joined the Navy, actually. But I did find it's showing its age. It really is. So it would be fabulous if we could have a new tool, one of those. Anyway, again, pretty much all the footage I lost in the technological meltdown I had, and I had a really tight deadline. So thanks to another friend of the channel, Mike Reeves, he of Face Hanger Resins, he sent me one from America. It actually arrived here, which is a bit of a bonus. It's a bit of a lottery when you send stuff out here. But that arrived with a KMC cockpit and one or two other bits and pieces and some resin wheel wells and all that kind of blah. And I managed to film that as well. And then that went on hold because there was a delay in production of the paints. It was a mad panic to get it done. I got it done within a fortnight, but so I made the deadline just about, literally within a few days. But then we had to wait ages and ages and ages for Ammo to announce the product, which was a real shame. Totally beyond their control. Post-COVID supply issues, nightmare. But we got there in the end. So that was done in 92 Squadron's colours. And I'm really pleased how they turned out, actually. But it would be nice to have a new tool, modern one of those. Right, the next kit that I did was, it was a bit of a shock when it came out, was the Armour Hobby Key 84 Hyate in 72nd scale. What a beautiful little kit that is. Came totally out of the blue. No one was expecting it. They released the box art, and I'm going to murder the name, and apologies. I think it's pronounced something along the lines of Koiki Shigeo or something like that. He's the chap who does all the Hasegawa box art. Absolutely phenomenal artist. So they released that first, and then it came out almost straight away. So I managed to grab one. The extras I did to that, it had a full rivet job, which I think is essential, but that's my own personal preference. And what else did I use on that? It had the full Eduard photo etch treatment, which the main parts for that were the undercarriage gear doors and things. Added quite a bit of finesse there, and some detail in the undercarriage bay. Not that you can really see it, because obviously the aeroplane sat on its undercarriage, so unless you pick up the model and have the bushes inside, not strictly necessary. Some cockpit detail stuff, where actually the cockpit is a very small opening. But the best thing really, if you're going to get anything, get the Brassin seat, because it's pretty much scale thickness. All the lightning holes are drilled out, and it's a significant improvement. And I've regularly said that the focal point of any model is the cockpit, and the focal point of the cockpit is normally the seat. It's the kind of most prominent thing, especially in a jet within an ejection seat. And it really does elevate it to the next level, that. I also use the Brassin exhausts, which, to be honest, they're so small anyway and tucked away, then it's, you know, it's your choice. It's only very cheap upgrade, so, you know, a few quid, so why not? But if you're going to get one thing, definitely get the seat, I reckon. That was, I chose the natural metal one, and again, Nige did the masks for that, so all the markings were sprayed, even some of the stencils were sprayed, and I was really pleased with how that turned out. That was a lovely little kit. In contention for Kit of the Year. And that brings me on to the last kit, which was the Hobby Boss 1/48 scale Antonov 2 Colt, the post-apocalyptic one, the sequel to the Bronco. Now, that was the concept, was post-apocalyptic, and I threw it. Okay, sorry about that little glitch there. The SD card filled up. Right, probably means I'm wittering on far too much, so I'll keep this brief. So, where was I? Yes, the last model was the post-apocalyptic Hobby Boss AN2 Colt, of which I threw everything at it. 2 Brassin engines for the Napier Sabre, for the Tempest, the Pratt & Whitney 2800 for the nose. Oh, crumbs, what else was on there? Right, there was the Tamiya turret for the 48 scale Lancaster. There was the Brassin SBD5 twin 30 cal machine gun sticking out the left. There were numerous Aerobonus sort of oxygen bottles and things like that. There were the Ares Mohawk ejection seats. There was the Red Fox Studios instrument panel, which actually was for the B1, so I ended up chopping all that up. Loads of scratch detailing, loads of leftover greebly bits added for all these, loads of detail, fully detailed interior. I used the Tamiya 48 scale Humvee kit, nicked a load of parts from that. What was on there? So the wing mirrors, 40mm grenade launcher, undercarriage parts, the grille, spare wheels, shovels and axe and all that kind of stuff, seats, just loads of stuff went into that. The wheels actually were from Def models, so they were for a Humvee, but weighted. The gun pods under the wings were from adapted from an Edward Mustang kit with some Master Barrels 37mm gun barrels sticking out the front. All the propellers, so that was Airfix Sea Fury propeller, Barracuda Studios resin, Spitfire fire-bladed Griffin Spitfire prop. What else? The propeller on the front was from Mustang, the Edward Mustang. Oh crikey, what else? I think that must be about it, isn't it? I'm trying to think, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the final thing was the resin skull on the front. That was a 3D printed thing. Can't remember where I got that from. I think I just Googled it on eBay or something and bought that set. The last thing was some 3D, bespoke 3D printed parts. So the very aft bulkhead down the back end, like a submarine hatch. So friend of the channel, Nige, printed that for me. And also he did the loo, the toilet in the back. That was all printed as well. So yeah, what I forgot to do was do the lid on that, but never mind. Maybe on the next one. But that was such an involved project. I need a bit of a palette cleanser before starting the next sort of proper project, which is going to be the Zukimura F4C, which I'm building for a friend of mine, Christian. And that's going to be one of Robin Olds's. It's just sat just down there. I've got every extra to throw at that. That's going to be a fun project and a good exercise in some weathering as well. But the last project was very involved. That's going to be very involved. And what I want is just to do, I just need a bit of a detox, de-stress. I'm going to do a very simple kit next. I don't quite know what that's going to be. What I do know is it's going to be the first for 2023. And I may or may not film that or do a photography thing with it. I may just build it just for me. No photography, nothing like that. Go back sort of old school and we'll see how we get on with that. But knowing me, probably not. I won't be able to resist at least taking some photos. Maybe I'll video it as well. We'll have to wait and see on that. But that's 2023. This is all about 2022. And we're at the end of 2022 and I'm at the end of the video. Once again, thank you very much for all your support, your encouragement. Even had a couple of super thanks, which is very exciting. Thank you very much. I'm not sure when it all pays actually. I think I've got to reach the payment threshold. Don't know what that is. Don't really care. I'm not doing it for the money, but the super thanks is really extremely humbling actually, and I'm extremely grateful. So thank you very, very much for those. There's only been a couple, but like I say, it just blew me away when they came in. I was like, oh wow, look at that! Someone likes it so much they want to send me some pocket money. So absolutely brilliant. One thing I've never done on this channel is I've never done the whole cliched YouTube click, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, click on buy me a coffee and Patreon and blah, you know, and hit the bell and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. I think by now everybody knows how YouTube works. It's fantastic if you want to subscribe. It's brilliant, and it's fantastic if you like the videos. It's fantastic if you talk about them. It's just very humbling, and yeah, it's a really nice thing to do. But I'm not going to beg for subscribes and likes and things like that. It's I just want to let this thing grow organically, and if people want to, as I said, everyone knows how it works, and yeah, there's no point advertising for it. I know that sounds like a bit of a passive aggressive way of saying please like, subscribe, hit the bell, blah. It really isn't. It's just I just want to get my 2p across on that. And with that, I think we're just about finished. I can't wait to see what 2023 brings. I'm sure there's going to be lots of very exciting new releases. They're going to come. I will be putting out my thoughts as they get released. I know Airfix always do a big announcement beginning of January, as do Revell. We've already had Edwards, obviously. Tamiya always play their cards close to their chest, as do Armour. And most of the Eastern European chaps actually tend to drip feed their stuff out. So the sort of big January announcements is only some of the old established big firms tend to do that, but they're very exciting nonetheless. So I will be bringing those to you when they come. Right, I've whittled on for long enough. Thank you very much for staying with me, sticking with the course, watching the videos. It's been great, and I'll see you on the next one, I guess. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.